All right, Krishna, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I'm fielding a question about spirituality and money. This is a question that I've had to ask my own teachers about a number of times. I still keep learning about it, obviously, through experience, all like every day, and it's we all have to deal with money every day. It's a reality of life. So the question is naturally, well, how do you deal with money since so frequently it's a necessity, and yet there's the complications of lust and desire and greed and ambition and so many things that can just take over our relationship with money. So anyway, this question goes like this. It's about money and spirituality. Some may say that you have to choose only one because they're opposites. Some may say they go together well. I'm bringing this up because some astrologers have looked at my horoscope. The first one said, good for a religious life. Second one said, good for making money. I have a strong interest in religion, especially bhakti. And I'm not the type to meditate or sit still for a long time. Although I much appreciate bhajan. That's going to be like the space of prayer and song and worship. I tried to find a guru, but this did not work out. So I think I need to find some way to reconcile my mundane talents with my spiritual calling. I'm interested in your advice. Well, aside from, maybe what specifically you should do or what you shouldn't do with your talents or abilities, let me say first of all that, astrologers who are looking at birth charts, we can get it wrong in some big ways, right? So astrologers don't always write about everything. Secondly, every single chart that has ever been or that could ever be is completely qualified for having a strong interest in religion because it's actually our inborn nature to seek out our source. And so the first thing I would just say is that if an astrologer looks and said, oh, you have a really religious chart or you have a chart that's really inclined to spiritual life, it's possible that some astrologers are going to be able to see, a past sort of pious proclivity. There may be indications of piety or faith in the chart somewhere, but nobody is disqualified from having a deeply religious life if they choose to. We have choice, we have free will. So that's just to say that first. What qualifies us for spiritual life is our choice, always. So I've noticed too that people will, kind of choose like, okay, it's one or the other, or maybe they go together well. The people who are going to say that money and spirituality don't work together are going to be the ones who say, you're either on the path of renunciation, like you're going to spend time really away from the world, and maybe you're even living in the forest like the yogis of old. Or they're going to say that it should be, incredibly minimal and austere, if at all, right? So that's a path. And I just like to just point out that there are many paths. So that's one path. And it's not the path that I'm on. So it's not one that I can relate to, but it certainly is one that I respect. And just because I'm not on that particular path with money, I have a family, I have a mortgage, blah, blah, blah. That just because that's not the path that I'm on doesn't mean that I don't understand it, that I don't understand its assessment of the dangers of money. And what are they? That money is the root of all evil, that greed is the root of all evil, that money, power, greed, lust, ambition, vanity, none of those things can satisfy us. A lot of them are like go along with money. And so that's that. But the truth is that all the temples in the Bhakti tradition that I follow, have needed the community to pitch in to support them. The people who come into the temples throw into the hundi, the offering jar. So, it's cliched, but I would say that, for some people, there's going to be a calling to really go further with renunciation of material things. And for other people, there's going to be a calling that's, you're going to have a family, you're going to be in the world. I personally don't think everyone's at the level of being able to renounce and go into sort of monastic life. And I also don't think that it's the only way. We have so many examples in the Bhagavad Purana, which is one of the classic bhakti texts, of devotees who perfect their spiritual lives and are self-realized while also having been in the world. And so it's not, we shouldn't think that there's only one way to get to this communion of loving God and being self-realized by that love from within our heart and soul. So that's the first thing. But so those are legitimate criticisms that people will have of money. Understandable. And some people are going to be called not to go down that path, but then others are going to be called to be in the world, at which point the question becomes, how do you use or relate to this, this thing called money? And this is an important distinction, because in Bhakti Yoga, basically what we say is that, some people, the tendency of people who renounce all material things is to think that materiality is evil, or to think that it's bad, in contrast to spirit, which is good. And what the devotee of the Lord sees, so to speak, to use the language of the Gita or the Bhagavatam, is that this material energy is God's illusory energy. And for the person who's training their heart and mind to see God in everything, to love and commune with God through practices of devotion and service, that we start to be able to see, yes, this is illusory energy, but it's still God's energy, and I can use any of it in order to complement, build, develop, and add to the offering of my faith and love to God. So, for example, I can go out into the garden and I can see flowers. They're temporary, they're impermanent. I know that flowers are not the source of my eternal happiness, but I can pick a flower and I can lay it on my altar and give it with prayer and food, like an apple. Krishna says, if you give me a leaf, an apple, some flour, a flower, some water, like that, like I'm totally satisfied. That's God, like totally satisfied. Well, if God's satisfied with us handing God a plate of material energies, little foods, and like that, what is that saying? Is that saying that materiality is bad or evil? No, it's saying that it's beautiful, it's sanctified. In other words, we sanctify the material energy by how we use it. So when it comes to the maintenance of our lives, we have to use money to support ourselves and our families because we're in service. It's our dharma, meaning our duty, and we can't run from that. Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, no one can help but act in this world, action, karma. You can't help but, you have to act even just to breathe. So no one can help but act, and everyone should act. Everyone should do what? Their dharma, which means it's like a sacred, pious sense of duty in the world, to family, to our kids, to our spouse, or to our job, or to, using our talents in service to others, trying to make the world a better place, trying to leave nature a little better than we found it. Like, that's dharma. We have to do that. That's our duty. And, some souls, their duty, their path is going to take them more away. They're going to live in an ashram, or they're going to live, and that's fine. But they're not doing that because materiality is evil. They're doing that because that's a different space that soul is in within their relationship to God. And as we progress, our lives may, in fact, leave more and more of the trappings of worldly duties behind. It's not a bad thing to necessarily go to a cave and meditate from time to time either. Solitude and the development of the inner life is also really important. So, but as long as we're in the world, anything in the world used in service, love, devotion, remembrance of God is the proper use of material energy. So when you have money in your life, I mean, this is what I'm learning all the time. A couple of things that our gurus have said in this tradition is that you want to give money in service to devotees, which means people who are serving God with that money, right? So regularly, my wife and I have a few different teachers who are essentially like traveling monks, or they live a monastic lifestyle, and we donate to support their work, just in the same way that a congregation will support their minister, right? So you give to support teachers, you give to support causes that are spreading goodness, or that are spreading bhakti, or that are spreading love of God. So you want to constantly think, this isn't my money, this is God's money, and I'm here to use it in God's service. So that's one attitude that you have to take in bhakti toward the use of money, how that energy is actually used. And then it's also about knowing that your money is, as long as it's going into supporting and creating a safe sattvic environment for your family, clean, pure, pious, ethical, good habits, good food, clean food, taking care of your home altar, your deities, paying your bills, being sort of just being a respectable citizen in a sense. If you're using your money in that way, that's good too. It's when it comes to using the money in service of things that are really self-indulgent. And then within that, there's also an inevitable way in which you're going to, like, none of us are perfect, just like I can't think perfectly pure thoughts yet. I'm not there. My mind is filled with chitta-vrittis, the stuff of the mind. And so in time, as I keep practicing, so too will my ability to restrain. Like, I have to learn how to restrain the senses. I have to learn to restrain how and when and why I use money. But right, because in the times that I'm not using it for my dharma or my spiritual life, taking care of duties and taking care of my relationship with God, then it's in that space that there's always room for refinement. I think a lot of people don't want to have to deal with money because it's difficult to earn a living, to have to deal with it. Understandable. Still, if in trying to avoid dealing with money, we are avoiding our dharma, meaning we're avoiding using our talents and skills in the world to serve others, making sure that we're taking care of our family, that we're responsible, in the relationships, the web of relationships that we're connected to. There should be some, a little small sense of ancestral pride that we have to be a good steward to the karma of our family. Like, we're connected to everyone. So, but those things matter. And so sometimes people won't want to deal with money. They just want to split and run away because it's like hard to make it, or it's hard to deal with it, or it's hard to budget, or you hate a job or whatever. I get it. But I think a lot of the times people will then be like, well, it's just because, money is the root of all evil. I just don't want anything to do with it. It's like, fair enough. But then if you're crashing on people's couches all the time, or if you're, if other people are constantly having to take care of you, or you're kind of always in need or in a victim state around money or something like that, then, it might just be that the real spiritual austerity is to learn how to be in the world and just responsibly handle that energy the best that you can. But then, sometimes people really are called to just, live in an ashram. So it's hard to say, and I'm certainly not the judge of anyone. So I hope that this has been helpful. It was a really good question about money. These are just a few thoughts that I have. My wife and I in our businesses have always believed, like, all of our services have either at one time been totally by donation, or there's been different donation options, sliding scales for everything that we've done, from yoga, astrology, herbalism. And it's always been an adventure trying to mix and match. Like, okay, some services have to be standardized because we've got to make the bills. And then as the business has grown, I've had a staff to take care of, and, like people that work for me, and kids, and like all this other stuff. So then your bottom line changes, and figuring that all out, and still how to try to be in integrity with it, how to make sure it's doing good for people in the community. It's just an ongoing thing. And even if you're in it and just trying to figure it out and do your best, I think that you're winning, so that's how I have to look at it for myself anyway. But I hope that, again, I hope that this was helpful. And if you guys have any questions about Bhakti ever, please email me, info@nightlightastrology.com. Put Bhakti question in the subject line. All right. Take it easy, everybody. Hare Krishna.